If we could turn to Hebrews 11, verse 6. Before I start, I just want to pray. Lord, I just ask for your help, Lord. Help me as I speak, Lord. Please help me to rightly portray who you are, Lord. And Lord, I just pray that we would look at you and be encouraged, Lord, and just ask for your help. Amen. All right, so I'm going to speak from, I'm just going to focus mostly on Hebrews 11:6, just that verse. I'm going to start reading in verse 5, though. And I just have 2 points. And the 2 points are, what in this verse is pleasing to God, and what does this verse display about the character of God? So 2 points. What is pleasing to him in this verse, and what does this verse show us about the character of God? So I'm going to start reading. And then also, too, and then at the end, I'll make an application. So for a believer who's struggling, for someone who's not a Christian, and for a Christian who's encouraged or doing well. I may not have time to get to the Christian who's encouraged or doing well. We'll see how I'm doing time-wise. Okay, so starting in verse 5. By faith, Enoch was taken up so that he should not see death, and he was not found because God had taken him. Now before he was taken, he was commended as having pleased God. And without faith, it is impossible to please him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. So my first point that I'm going to think about here is, what is it in this verse that is pleasing to God? I want to be pleasing to God. So if we're looking at this verse, what can we see in this verse that is pleasing to God? So, sorry, my point here. What is pleasing to him? So I would argue to you from this verse, what is pleasing to him, it says, and without faith, it is impossible to please him. So what I would argue to you, the thing that pleases him is faith. And kind of pulling from the verse before, Enoch had faith, he was pleasing to God. So the thing that pleases God is faith. And so we see here faith is pleasing to him. But let's kind of break that down and look at more what is that faith it's talking about in this verse. So it says, and without faith it is impossible to please him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists. So the first thing is you have to believe that God exists. And then it keeps going. And it says that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. NASB or Legacy Standard says he is a rewarder of those who seek him. I kind of like the rewarder because it kind of sums up who he is, a rewarder. So, what is pleasing to him? You must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder. Or, I think another way you could say this is someone who answers. If you're seeking something, it's like God answers. So, when we're looking at, okay, what's in this verse, what's the focus of what is pleasing to him? I would say it's what you think. It's what you think. What you think about God. Yeah, what you think about him. Because listen to what it says. It says, you must believe that he exists, and, so you're believing something, and that he rewards those who seek him. What are you thinking about him, or what are you believing about him? You believe he is a rewarder of those who seek him. So this thing you're thinking that's pleasing him, it's believing that he's a rewarder. Or you could say believing that he answers. So what is pleasing to him? That we, in our minds, as we're thinking about what faith is, it's what we think. What do we think about God? And what we think about him is either pleasing to him or not pleasing to him. And what I'd argue to you is that what is pleasing to him is when you think of him as a God who rewards, as a God who answers. That is pleasing to him. If in your heart you think of him as a God that does not answer, does not reward, that is not pleasing to him. So what do you believe about the character of God? What is in your heart? Not what you tell other people, but what do you think of when you think about God? We could flip this on its head and say it the other way around. It says, for whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. So that's pleasing to him, believing that he's a rewarder of those who seek him. The other way around would be, what's not pleasing to him is not believing that he is a rewarder, not believing that he answers those who seek him. That is displeasing to him. The other thing I want to point out in this verse, which I think is interesting, is when we're thinking about being pleasing to him, is the focus is actually on not your seeking, but that he's the rewarder. So the focus isn't on how much am I seeking God, but the focus is on who he is, his character, that he's a rewarder. Which brings me to my second point. My second point is, what does this verse teach us about the character of God? And I would say it teaches us that he is a rewarder. It tells us he rewards those who seek him. He is a rewarder, or as the NASB says, he is a rewarder of those who seek him. So if we're going to learn something from this verse about the character of God, it is that he is a rewarder. Now, I don't know if you're like me. Sometimes we say a word like that and we're like, what does that actually mean? He is a rewarder. And so I thought it was helpful to think of it in two ways. In two ways. If someone is seeking something from you, you have to have two things, I would say. You have to have the thing they are seeking, and then you have to have the desire to give it to them. And so, and in the context here, what is the person seeking? They're seeking to draw near to God, right? Yeah, in the context, they're seeking to draw near to God. Well, my argument would be, the writer of Hebrews has laid out how he has everything to let us draw near to God. He's got the blood that purifies us and cleanses us and allows us to draw near to God. He's got the perfect sacrifice. He's got the high priest, the perfect high priest. God has everything he needs to enable us to draw near to God. But not only that, he's trying to tell us here in this verse that I have the desire. I have the desire for you to draw near to God. So I would say if you're looking at what is a rewarder, they have to have the ability to give the thing you're seeking, and then they have to have the desire to give it. And I would say God has both those things, and he's showing us from these passages, not only does he have the ability to enable us to draw near to him in spite of our sin, in spite of our own evil, but he also has the desire to do it. And, and then, Philip says to Christ, he says, show us the Father. And he says, Philip, haven't you seen me? I know I'm not quoting that right, but the idea is, if you've seen Christ, you've seen the Father. And what I would argue to you is look at the Gospels. When you see Christ in the Gospels, the woman with the issue of blood, when she comes to Christ, is he a rewarder? He does. As she comes to him in need, he rewards her. What about the centurion who comes on the behalf of his servant? Does Christ turn him away? No, he is a rewarder. You see in Christ, he is a rewarder. What about, and this is one of my favorite, the Canaanite woman. She comes to Christ. And at first it looks like, is he really a rewarder? But we see at the end, he is a rewarder. And we could go on. Zacchaeus, he seeks him. He's in the tree. He's a rewarder. There's many more you see of Christ that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. I wanted to talk about, and you might in your heart be thinking, well, sometimes it seems like he isn't a rewarder because I'm crying out to God and he's not answering. But I would, I challenge you with, God doesn't always answer the way we think he should. And so I would argue he is a rewarder. He may not reward you in the way that you think he needs to. For example, say you're struggling and you're being attacked by blasphemous thoughts, and you cry out to God and say, Lord, take them away. And he doesn't take them away, but he gives you the grace to pick up his word and to resist the devil. And he gives you brethren that come to you and share verses with you and encourage you and enable you to keep going. Did he answer you? He didn't take away the thoughts, but he gave you what you needed. So I would say sometimes we think he's not a rewarder, but he is a rewarder, just not in the way we think. Okay, so 2 points. What pleases him? That we believe that he is, and that he's a rewarder. And what is his character that this verse displays? It's that he is a rewarder. So now I want to apply this first to the Christian who's struggling or weak. And I would argue a lot of the thrust of the book of Hebrews is to the Christian who's weak or struggling, and that's why I'm going to start with this, applying it to this person first. If you're feeling like, man, I'm going through this trial, and where is God? Like, I can't see him. And does he even want me to keep bringing my problems to him? My argument to you would be, look, what's pleasing to him is that you believe he's a rewarder. So come to him in your trials and say, Lord, I don't see you. I don't know what you're doing, but it says in your word, it's pleasing to you when I come to you and believe you're a rewarder. So I'm going to keep coming to you. I'm going to keep crying out to you. And also, I would argue to you his character. He is a rewarder. So keep coming, and he will give you what you need. You may not understand what you really need, but he'll give you what you need if you keep seeking him. And also, what I would argue to you, if you're in that time of struggling, it's like, you know what Satan wants? Satan wants to attack you and make you think God doesn't care. God isn't as good as who the Bible says he is. And that's why we have to cling to verses like this and say, no, he's a rewarder of those who seek him. He answers, and it's not because of how hard we seek him. It's because of his character and that he's a rewarder. Okay, so that was my first, I'm not going to get to the encouraging believer one. Okay, so the last one is to those who are not a Christian here. So if you're not a Christian here, you don't have faith. And because of that, you're not pleasing to God. You're not pleasing to him. And so, and what you need to do is admit to the fact that he does exist and believe that, but not just believe that he has everything that he needs to draw you near to himself. He has everything. And not only does he have everything he needs to forgive you and cleanse you and change you, but he's willing. You need to believe that. But you might be here and say, well, how do I know he's a rewarder to me? And it's not just for someone else. Well, my argument to you would be the text doesn't say to certain people. It says right here that he rewards those who seek him. And so if you seek him, he will reward you. That's what the text says right there. And then not only that, I want to bring to you just one of the examples we talked about in the Gospels. If there was anyone who thought, if there was anyone who could think, maybe he's not a rewarder for me, it was the Canaanite woman. When she came to Christ, it's like his disciples are trying to turn her away. And then he even says things like, I came to the children of Israel. Does that sound like, I know I'm not quoting that right, but does that sound like he's a rewarder for her? But she keeps going. And then he says, it's not right to, I'm over my time. I'll just finish this point. It's not right to give, the food for the children to the dogs. And she keeps going. And she finds out he is a rewarder. But she could have stopped and she would not have found out that he was a rewarder. So my argument to you is if you're thinking, well, how do I know he's a rewarder to me? She kept going and she found out. And so you won't find out if you stand back and say, I don't think he's a rewarder to me. And that's not pleasing to him because you're not believing he's a rewarder. My last thought, I know I'm over, sorry, is you can't remain neutral in this thing. You can't remain neutral. You either are making an accusation on his character or you're believing in the goodness of his character. Because you're either saying you're not a rewarder, I will not believe in you, or you're saying you are a rewarder, I'm going to come to you. You can't stay in between. Because by not coming to him, you're basically saying you're a liar and you're not a rewarder and you're not good. But he is good. And if you seek him, you'll find he is a rewarder of those who seek him.